Hey, Las Vegas, Jesse Merrick here. At the end of today's episode, I've got a sponsored interview with TaskRabbit. Cody Gokin, who's the software engineer over there, is going to talk to me about the best ways to get your home ready before the desert heat really kicks in, and how Vegas residents are turning their skills into real income right in their own neighborhoods. Brought to you by TaskRabbit. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, April Corbin Girnus of the Nevada Current joins us to dive into CCSD's recently announced 5-year plan to figure out if we'll actually help fix our school system's problems. Plus, Michael MJ Lyle, also of the Nevada Current, helps us explain Clark County's whack-a-mole approach to homeless encampments. And we detail why the city is installing traffic cameras at dozens of intersections, but using them for reasons that may surprise you. It's Wednesday, May 27th. I'm Jesse Merrick, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. All right, April, MJ, how's it going? Happy Wednesday.
Hey, happy Wednesday. Good morning.
Already halfway through.
I know, we made it to hump day. I love the long weekends. It's always great. April, we'll start with you, though, and dive into the school system. Obviously, it's always a hot-button issue here in Southern Nevada. Sounds like they've got a new plan. They're calling it the Destination District. Explain to us what exactly all of that means.
Yeah, so the Destination District is a 5-year plan that CCSD unveiled and approved earlier this month. And it's focused, and this is their wording, not mine, academic excellence, career, connected learning, and safe and supportive schools. So what does that mean? In practical sense, they've set some benchmarks that they're trying to reach over the next 5 years, and that includes increasing kindergarten through grade 3 literacy proficiency by 60%.
It's a big jump.
Big jump, because currently only about 35% of K through 3 kids are proficient in reading. Wow. So 60% of that even still doesn't get us where we should be, right? But it's a big benchmark considering. And then also another one of their benchmarks is increasing the graduation rate to 90%. That sounds a little more doable. It's the graduation rate is currently at 87%, right around there. So again, that goal would bring us above the national average, but we're not too far away from that in terms of percentage-wise. You know, the CCSD has a press release on their website that sort of outlines a little bit more about it, but, you know, the plan includes things like, and I'm quoting them again, safely piloting AI and other innovative, more engaging ways to learn.
It's a new world for sure there.
Again, that's their wording, not mine, when it comes to AI, but, and also, CCSD said that they're going to be focusing on ensuring that graduates have marketable assets like college credits, industry credentials, or military pathway, you know, things to do after graduation. Personally, one thing that stood out to me was that they said they have a desire to make students feel like they have a sense of belonging by participating in meaningful activities that help them explore their dreams and talents. You know, as a parent and, you know, spouse of a CCSD teacher, I do think that's one thing that often gets forgotten about when we talk about these academic skills and benchmarks is just the feeling of belonging and school activities and arts and sports and after school activities and things like that. Such a big deal. I do hope personally that the plan includes that. But that's kind of the overview of what their plan is for the next 5 years.
I think that's a great thing to bring up, though, too. Like, if the kids are bought into it and they feel welcomed, they're going to enjoy it more. I think it's like that simple. So seeing that kind of buy into that, I think would be great for the school system. MJ, as you kind of dive into this, they're saying that this is like their North Star, their blueprint of how they're going to get there, and they're going to iron out all the details kind of along the way here. This blueprint that we see now, what sticks out to you in their plan to try and fix things?
The AI obviously kind of sticks out a part of it, just because I am curious how schools engage with this. This has actually been a topic at the legislature in the interim session, if they're going to look at regulations as far as AI in general, but what that means for school in developing curriculum, when it's helping students. I am nervous. I mean, AI gives me a lot of pause in general, but I am nervous because, like, if it's used in such a way that it's actually not actually helping students prepare for life after high school, like, then what's the point? I mean, I hear a lot from college students. I mean, I have a niece who's a college student now, but I hear a lot from college professors too, that, like, their students just, like, can't read full books and, like, just are not prepared. And so I'm just curious, like, where we're actually going. Like, what is actually the end goal? And, like, is this really getting us there?
No, it's so true. Yeah, like, that's the thing. The great plan. Now figure out the execution. execution of it all,
Yeah.
really. You know, that's the thing. And so I think they're addressing some really good things. You know, and I love the fact of the marketable, assets and things like that for the kids. Like, you need that because in today's world, if you can sell yourself, you're going to have a better chance at landing a job or getting into a college, And so I think preparing kids that way would be huge. But just kind of overall, I know CCSD is going through some things in terms of, the budget and all those things. Are you guys comfortable that this 5-year plan addresses that portion of it enough or not?
I mean, with the budget problems that are expected with CCSD, with declining enrollment, I mean, in some ways, it all depends, right? Because schools are funded on a per pupil basis. So, I mean, if you theoretically went into the next legislative session and the state said, hey, we're going to give more money per student to CCSD, then that sort of counteracts what... that would give them more resources because they would have fewer students, sure, but they would have more money to do the things that they want to do in this plan. If they go into the next legislative session and they say, we're going to keep your per pupil amount at the same amount it is currently, then we're just asking them to do more with less, which doesn't work, right? So there's a lot of factors that I think it's a little premature to talk about in terms of what that might look like. I think a lot of us who are watching the economy and the state are not expecting great windfalls of money next year. But we don't know any sort of hard numbers in what that looks like, right? So I think that, CCSD, to their credit, is aware that those sort of financial challenges are looming, and I think they can maybe hopefully figure out a way to sort of work around that and do more with what they have. But a lot of it will depend on whether or not the state and legislators and the governor buy into this and say, I like this plan and we're going to fund it and give it more resources, because that is essentially what is going to be needed.
My question always for educational attainment also relies around like the social safety net. As a reporter that covers the social safety net, educational outcomes do not happen in a vacuum. Like, they are dependent of all these other social structures. And so if like parents and families are slipping through the social safety net or having trouble with housing and food, like, how is that going to actually help a student actually learn and be their best version of themselves and prepared? Like, you can't really prepare and engage in a classroom to the fullest extent when your social safety net, when everything else around you is in chaos. And so I hope the lawmakers are considering like this 5-year plan and what actually gets students ready for college. Like, they're not just looking at the education side, but also all the social structures too that are actually influencing whether they have the proper learning environment to actually reach their fullest potential.
Well, one of the things that they tried to address in terms of a proper learning environment and kids paying attention to things like that was the whole cell phone pouches thing. We all know that was a hot button issue. But they spent $2.6 million on it. Is that something you guys think was worth it? And that's what makes me question of like, hey, cool, it's great. We've got this plan, but you go and do things like this cell phone deal. So can we trust the plan going forward with that?
Yeah, I mean, here the thing is that I know the cell phone pouches was controversial for a lot of people. I personally think that it's great. We shouldn't have cell phones in classrooms. I think that from what I've heard, and I don't know that the district has done anything comprehensive on how that's gone or what they plan to do for upcoming school year later this year, but those kinds of things, a lot of it is dependent on the school site itself. It's like, how strict are the teachers and how strict is the principal towards adhering with that? And I also heard that since CCSD gives all of students Chromebooks, that a lot of kids are just sort of like, they have the VPN on their Chromebook and they're like bypassing the cell phone. So it doesn't matter if their cell phone's in the pouch because they're just watching YouTube and texting and doing all of the things that are bad, all of the things that they shouldn't be doing on their school-issued Chromebook instead of their cell phone. So really a lot of that depends on the school culture in itself, is how serious the schools are taking it and do they allow that. So I think that's going to base a lot on individual schools, and I hope that more schools are doing that. I know it's controversial and I get it, but all the data in the world suggests that they're a distraction and not a good thing. So I hope they do. I don't know that hopefully it doesn't cost $2.6 million all the time, but
that's a crazy figure. But even though it's like a program that you see the research out of other school districts of how like significant it can be, that is still a crazy number and a crazy expense. I am curious to see what data if they have any correlation of like what effects it's had on students learning.
But overall, again, like we've said, this is at least a pathway that they're going to use as their North Star. So April, we'll start with you because you are a parent. Do you feel better about the direction that CCSD is heading with this recent news?
I don't know. I mean, my kids are fairly young, but I was a product of CCSD myself. So, and I grew up here. So I kind
And
of
you
know
turned out
that.
great.
And I got turned out all right.
Yeah.
No, hopefully you guys agree. No, I will say that every new school superintendent has something similar to this. There's a 5-year plan every 5 years, right? Like, it's not, I don't think necessarily that anything in here is super groundbreaking or something completely different, right? I think it's a lot of the time with education, the new plans are just the same thing packaged differently.
Yeah.
We've known that reading literacy is, a very important thing, especially at that sort of third grade level. These are not new concepts to us or whatever. I think that Superintendent Ebert seems to have support and sort of backing that prior superintendents, especially the most recent superintendent, didn't have. And I think that sort of bodes well for the direction of the district. Obviously, these outside factors about money and resources and teachers and those things, but they have made gains on those things. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, I think, about where the district is going. I think that it's so easy for parents, for media, for observers, for politicians to just talk poorly about the district and to say that it is, a sinking ship and everything is going straight to hell in a handbasket. And then the natural next step is to look for a solution that's outside of the school district. And what is that? Privatization of schools, homeschooling, which comes with its own sort of downsides socially and academically. I know I'm going to get hate for that, but it's true. I'll stand by that. So I think that I stand with the district in the sense that I think they are attempting to do something, and we'll see. And they've promised to provide updates as we go along. I think, the board meets regularly, and hopefully we'll see a lot of this developing more and more. So I'm optimistic. There's a lot going on in the school district, and a lot of it is good. And part of the school district's problem is that it just doesn't promote and market itself, and especially its successes, as well as it should. So I think there's a lot to like, and, we'll see.
And as we move on, speaking of, cautiously optimistic about approaches, or maybe not necessarily knowing how something is going to be done, MJ, it seems like there's a very interesting approach being taken by the county to deal with homeless encampments. What's the deal here?
Yeah, so last week at the county commission, Tick Sickerbloom, who oversees the east side, he introduced a proposal to actually close off a section of pedestrian bike trail that's between Sandhill Road and Boulder Highway to prevent homeless encampments from going up. He didn't need official approval, but he wanted to bring it before the commission to essentially discuss his proposal. The idea was to keep seeing homeless encampments in that area, so just close it off. We've seen this approach not just in Clark County, but in the city of Las Vegas and across the country, where we see encampments in public areas, and so they kind of just close those areas off. And so that's the approach they're going with right now. He said this is needed because every time that they remove it for cleaning, a week later, these encampments are coming back. When I interviewed him after the fact, I had a lot of questions about it because I've seen this approach so often. We've seen tunnel enclosures and part of the population moving out into other encampments. We've seen parks being closed across the valley. And so the question I've asked him, which he didn't really have an answer for, was, well, two parts. One, like, how do you know this is helping people get into services? Because one of the quotes that he had was like, maybe we can just make it life so miserable for them. Maybe they want to approach services.
Crazy quote.
Crazy quote, which is actually every social service provider that I've ever talked to say opposite of the approach works. But also the notion that over the last few years, we've seen a lot more punitive measures taken across Southern Nevada, with ordinances that prohibit sleeping and camping in public, to order out ordinances which prevent people that have been convicted of a misdemeanor in like resort areas from returning or face higher punishment. So one of the questions I had, which she didn't have an answer to, was whether those punitive measures are resulting in more encampments popping up and being more condensed in other areas. Because if you keep like preventing them from going certain places, they're gonna go to the places where they think they're going to be able to survive, essentially. And that's going to create this density of homeless encampments. So I wanted to see, has the county looked at that? This is something that I've talked with social service providers a lot, something that they believe is happening with more punitive measures. And so I wanted to see if the county was looking into that. And he said no, but it's interesting that the county keeps taking these approaches, and city governments in general keep taking these approaches, but there's no clear methodology. There's no clear study of whether it actually is working to help resolve homelessness.
Yeah, I think the quote in there was the whack-a-mole approach, and I think that's so fitting, you know? And there's so much to unpack in this one, but the first thing that I have a question about is like the fact that there's no formal approval needed for something like this to shut that trail down, which has public access there and is dealing with some very vulnerable residents as well. So like, April, do you think that's something that they should just be able to be like, nope, we're closing it, instead of like weighing the public's opinion in this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a county or a city, I mean, it needs to have the ability to quickly shut down something if needed for an emergency or something. You know what I mean? Obviously, if there was a bridge or something, or a thing that broke or something like that, they would need the ability to move quickly. So you do have to give every county and sort of jurisdiction the ability to do that. I think what Commissioner Sagerboom did here was, you know, commendable, actually, in terms of the process, right? He said, I didn't have to do this necessarily. We could have shut it down, handled it on the back road. But he knows that if that had happened, it would have come out. There would have been media reports anyway, and there would have been a lot of like hubbub about it. Next door would have been blowing up. You know what I mean? Like the conversation would have happened. So he tried to get in front of it and say, hey, here's what we are going to do, and this is why. So he did sort of bring it into the public space and have that sort of discourse about that, which I do think, regardless of how you feel about the homelessness problem and how to address it, I do think that how he handled that is sort of a good thing.
One thing that I give him credit for is he had the guts to say, I don't know, to a lot of the questions that you were raising there, MJ. And I think it's okay for people not to have the answers, and they're trying something, right?
I think it's okay for politicians not to have the answer, but they haven't had the answer to this question, I think, writ large, like for a really long time. And that's not just us. That's like across the country. Like, why are these punitive measures, needed? And are they actually resulting in more people exiting homelessness? And I have not seen any data. And actually, to the contrary, I see a lot of, when I go into encampments, when I talk with providers and do follow-alongs with them and talk to unhoused individuals, they talk about just being disillusioned by the notion of public service and getting access to social services, because they've been told one too many times, like, we can help you get here, we can help you get exit homelessness, and just things happen so slowly, or it just falls apart, that they're kind of disillusioned to this whole process. And then you add insult to injury of constantly seeing law enforcement remove your belongings and aggressively move encampments. And so I understand Tick's thought of, well, they can't stay here, it's a public health concern. But the question I still have is this approach actually helping exit homelessness? And we're seeing homelessness rise at dramatic rates. We're seeing the type of funding at the federal level being cut and dramatically altered. And so the question becomes, like, if we're seeing less resources and less access to resources, but having more punitive measures towards those encampments, what is that going to mean for those unhoused individuals? I've been following along at some of those events where they actually are in, and they're talking to people like, yeah, we can take you to a shelter. But people, like, one, if they have a dog, they don't want to go to a shelter. If like they are with a spouse, they don't want to go to a shelter. Sometimes they have like mental health needs that like a large congregate shelter is not the place for them. And so also like expanding out, which the county has done some of that, expanding out non-congregate shelters so they can have like individual rooms or even like semi-private rooms as an option, but those are very limited. And so just really like, there are people that want to access services, but there's so many barriers and so many like obstacles for them to actually get there.
Yeah, like you said, creative solutions are needed. We'll see if maybe, again, more time and money can help fix that and allow people the room to kind of create more opportunities for people to get in there in different scenarios. I think the dog factor, I think, honestly, is a big part of it, too. All right, let's keep it moving and dive into something really interesting here, okay? The Las Vegas City Council just unanimously approved a new pilot program to install radar and camera systems at 12 intersections across the city, okay? And before you panic, the city wants to be very clear. They're saying that these are not red light cameras, wink, wink. They say they're not going to ticket you, and they're not going to store your license plate or your image or any of that. Instead, they're going to use the cameras to collect data on vehicle types, speeds, and timing to help the city figure out engineering solutions to the rise in deadly crashes on our roads, which Sounds great in theory, but here's the funny part about this whole kind of mini psychology exercise. The first phase of the study won't even have signs telling you the cameras are there. That's the control group portion of this thing. Then they'll add warning signs and see if driver behavior actually changes later on. All told, the program will cost just over $400,000. Installations are expected by the end of the year, and the locations include intersections at Las Vegas Boulevard in Charleston, Decatur and Ann, Fort Apache and Sahara, and several others around the valley. The first question, okay, they say they're not going to ticket you. They're not red light cameras. Do we trust them? Because we know that they want those things.
They absolutely want those things, but that's state law. Like, they legally cannot do that. I'm pretty sure if, like, they went forward with against state law, like, they would be hit with a lawsuit so fast. And so I don't know, like, I can't answer if whether people should trust or not. I just know if they did try to go against our state law, that there would be so many people that would go after them so quickly. So whether that comforts you or not, that's your decision. So.
I don't know if it does. April, does it you? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say I do think that the on paper reason for having them sounds good. Like, I mean, I know that from covering transportation stuff in the past, a lot of transportation studies have happened with, like a graduate student sitting in an intersection, counting the number of cars and like using a little camera to see how fast they're going. Like, very laborious sort of work that is painstakingly slow and not sort of automated in those things. So the idea of getting better data for engineering solutions to things is better. I'm kind of curious to see how much a sign does in the first place. I have a feeling that it would work for a second, and then a while after everybody figured out that the sign really didn't do anything, that it would go away again. I think it would be sort of a temporary thing, personally. But I mean, those problems are real in terms of at least traffic fatalities and things like that. And we're seeing more and more vulnerable users get seriously injured or die on the roadways, and we need a solution. And though I am also terrified of flock cameras, and the city is like every other sentence saying, these are not flock cameras. Remember, these are not there. These are not that. This is not that. All opted up. Of course, it gives me pause. But there's probably a balance to be found where transparency and some safeguards could be in place for how it's used and all of that. And we can't let a fear of that necessarily stop us from finding solutions to also very real problems like the number of people who die on roadways each week and things like that.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a massive problem for sure. As a skeptic, I'm like, oh man, we're giving them an inch. Wait till they try and take a mile. I don't love it from that regard. I'll be completely honest with you. But I like that at least something is trying to be done. The big question, though, for me is this the right move? Why this, other than like literally anything else that we know actually works to help with safety concerns on the roads?
It's funny. So part of like the story is saying they're doing this to look at like infrastructure needs too, but that's something that has been talked about for like multiple sessions right now of like, we should look at infrastructure rather than just looking at punitive measures. And my question, I guess, with this approach, because Metro has a buy-in into this program, and I'm curious if this is at what portion of this is going to be used in their long game of getting authorization to do what they want with red light cameras, opposed to the actual needs for infrastructure. I guess we're spending so much money for cameras. Why don't we just spend money in some of the infrastructure needs, instead?
And that's what I'm curious about too, because I mean, for both of you in your reporting, and April, I'll go to you first on this one. Like, have you talked to traffic safety advocates, and have they said anything about what actually works? Because obviously here it's a little more extreme, I think, in terms of our roads. I mean, just look at our insurance policies here. It's not fun. But in other areas, like, they obviously have issues on the roads and things like that. So have we not learned from them? Like, what are traffic safety advocates saying can be done rather than spending $400K on some cameras for an experiment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the answers are there, but people don't want to hear them. I'm sorry, everybody, but the leading cause or the one of the biggest factors in whether or not somebody who is hit with a vehicle is going to die is how fast the car was going. If everybody drove slower, it would be fine. If streets were not as wide, as in if we didn't have... If Windmill wasn't 8 lanes wide and supposed to be at Normandy, 2 feet away from everybody's houses, and also, 8 lanes of traffic or whatever, 6 or whatever. Those road diets, they're called there, those things help. Slowing cars down helps, I think If cars are more expensive to drive and force people into using public transit, that helps. If you have a robust transit system, that helps. If more people are walking and riding bikes, that increases visibility for everybody, then cars know how to more expect them. All of those things are done. All of those things are, we're well aware of those things.
Yes.
But unfortunately, cities, and I think the city of Las Vegas is probably guilty of this in this project, is people want a clean, easy solution that is palatable to the public, and people just don't want to hear that your giant, whatever big giant SUV you drive, I don't know what they're called anymore. You're giant, obviously I don't drive one. I drive a minivan, guys. But your huge F-150 on lifted wheels is part of the problem. You know what I mean? That it's just an unsexy thing. But, the cameras are probably not going to save us in the long run, even though I was trying to be optimistic earlier, guys.
We got her back.
But I guess I'm back to it. You're right.
And that actually was a question that Republican Senator Ira Hansen brought up during his no vote for this at Carson City, but saying, like, how does ticketing someone $100 4 weeks after the fact when they get the tickets, or like 10 days after the fact, actually slow someone down, which is the question. But I agree wholeheartedly with April. Like, we know the solutions, like even traffic safety experts know the solutions of like fast cars and like what we should do around that. It's just neighborhoods and people don't like those solutions, and so it's harder to like push back at them, and it's just easier to do these larger punitive red light cameras, like
experiments. That's the thing. At the end of the day, it was like, well, hey, this is what the research showed us. Well, you guys already have the research, and I'd much rather move forward on that. But this is where we're at. We'll see what comes of it all. And hopefully, as said, in the sake of being optimist, hopefully it works out for the best for all of us and our roads. In the meantime, though, April and MJ, thank you guys so much. This was fun.
Absolutely. Wear your seatbelt and drive the speed limit, guys.
Yes, good advice there. Hey there, Jesse here with Cody Gokin, a software engineer at TaskRabbit. Cody, welcome to CityCast Las Vegas. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, look, TaskRabbit is this awesome app, man, where you can actually find a neighbor essentially to come in and help you out with a household task, or to sign up to be that neighbor as well. So, Cody, for anyone out there who hasn't actually used the app yet, what are some of the go-to tasks that people in Las Vegas can actually use it for?
Furniture assembly and TV mounting are huge, especially with so much new development that's been happening here in Las Vegas. But we also handle cleaning, moving assistance, and general home repairs. The goal is ease and quality. You browse local profiles, you see real reviews from other Vegas residents, and then you pick the person that fits your budget and schedule.
Yeah, that sounds pretty straightforward. And obviously you can see why it's kind of taken off. Like, obviously TaskRabbit's been a staple here in Las Vegas for a while now. And you actually live in Vegas as well. So you've actually been able to see the platform kind of grow from the ground up here, huh?
Yeah, it's grown a lot. It started as a pretty simple idea 16 years ago, and now it's something people here rely on day to day, whether it's from work or just getting help with something around the house. We've helped Las Vegas residents complete over 40,000 tasks.
Wow.
And it's across the whole valley from Summerlin to Henderson. I also have a few friends here who are taskers, and they stay pretty busy, so you can really see the demand on both sides.
Yeah, 40,000 tasks. I mean, I'm sure people are doing some big time work there. That's for sure. Let's talk about the people, though, that are actually the ones doing that work. How does TaskRabbit actually support local workers here in the Valley?
This is a huge part of our mission. We aren't just a service, we're an engine for micro entrepreneurs. On average, taskers in Las Vegas earn $43 per hour. It's a fantastic way to build a business or make some extra money on the side. Taskers are their own bosses. They set their own rates, schedules, and work areas. Most importantly, they take home 100% of their hourly rate and 100% of their tips.
So over $40 an hour, that's a pretty darn good side hustle. And like you said, being your own boss, I mean, you really can't beat that. So I love CityCast. I might have to think about jumping on TaskRabbit. For anybody else out there that's interested in signing up to be a tasker today, what do they need to know?
Well, if you're over 18 and you have skills such as cleaning, painting, mounting, or general handyman work, you can sign up. A lot of the logistics are handled for you, so you can focus on the jobs and getting paid. And we also take safety seriously, so every tasker undergoes a multi-step screening process, including identity verification, background checks, so people feel comfortable using the platform.
Yeah, no, definitely. The comfort is king for sure on that. If you have somebody come into your house to do something like that, so you guys doing the good work behind the scenes to make sure you got the right people coming over. And obviously, too, like this is timely because I think everyone in Vegas is really excited for spring. Obviously that's our reprieve before the summer heat really starts to hit us here. And part of that process is spring cleaning. Like nobody likes doing that themselves, myself included. Personally, I start to go through like my closet and look around the house for all the things that I do and don't need, figure out what I should keep, what I should donate, different things like that. But what are some of the other household tasks that people should be thinking about as we kind of get prepped for spring and look ahead to summer?
Spring is really when we start to prepare for the heat. A
Yeah.
lot of people focus on things like yard work, clearing out the debris from the winter winds, and getting things around the house in order. It's also a good time to take care of the indoor stuff like organizing, cleaning, small repairs before the temperature really starts to climb here.
Yeah, no, that's definitely big. We all know about the winds too. My neighborhood got destroyed by them. They've got palm fronds everywhere. You can have somebody on TaskRabbit come help you out. Cody, thank you so much. This was a fun conversation. We appreciate you being here. For any guys out there that are listening, if you're in Las Vegas and you need a hand around the house or you want to start earning as a tasker yourself, head to taskrabbit.com. We'll actually have the link down in the show notes to make it really easy for you. And as always, thank you so much for listening to CityCast Las Vegas. That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our free morning newsletter as well. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Las Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Until then, though, take care.